Hello, and welcome to Other Voices Online, a monthly conversation for activists brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. I'm your host, Paul George. Well, as advertised, this evening's program is going to be a departure from our regular format of my interviewing some guest and then some Q&A at the end. But tonight, all of you are the special guests, all of you tuned in, and we hope to hear from as many of you as possible. We already have 50 people online, and so it looks like a lot of people want to sound off, and I can understand why. One of the reasons we're switching things up a bit this month is due to the extraordinary situation in which we find ourselves. I've been directly involved in progressive grassroots organizing for over 57 years now. And I can only say that I've never seen a political landscape such as we see today. We find ourselves confronting a powerful reactionary movement that would silence free speech, criminalize protest, institutionalize racism, and resort to military violence without a second thought. Just today, the man who calls himself Commander-in-Chief declared that US cities should be used as a training ground for US troops. In the face of all this, we will need every voice to speak out, and we need to be unified like never before. And it's our hope that tonight's program can provide an opportunity for us to do just that. To help me facilitate this conversation, I've invited two people who bring unique and much needed perspectives to our present dilemma. Together, we'll take a few minutes at the beginning to help lay out the groundwork and hopefully to prime the pump of creative ideas. And then we'll turn to all of you for your thoughts about where we are, where we need to go, and how we can get there. First, I'd like to introduce Sally Lieber. And inevitably, the phrase needs no introduction applies to Sally. I could just say local hero. But Sally has been one of the lead organizers for many of the largest recent protests in our area. As an elected official, Sally has served as city council member, mayor, county commissioner, state assembly member, and now is the chair of the State Board of Equalization and serves as a member of the California Franchise Tax Board. A lifelong advocate for people in need, Sally has worked tirelessly, serving our communities by working to stop wage theft, empowering undocumented Californians, securing funding and access for teen pregnancy prevention and reproductive services, leading gun violence reduction measures. You get the idea. If action is needed, Sally Lieber is there. Sally, thank you so much for taking time out of your really busy schedule to join us here tonight.
Oh, thank you so much for having us here. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in. It is so much needed, and it feels so good to be across the digital table from you and to have this chance to have a conversation. I think this is exactly what we need to be doing now. Um, as you mentioned, Paul, there are few adjectives that fit this administration. Troubled, disturbing, horrifying. There are really no bounds on what they will do or at least try to do. And I think I'm like most folks that are here that after the Trump administration won, we all had a chance to step back and say, well, we have a Democratic administration that is respecting rule of law and doing normal things to govern effectively. And and now it's really go time when we have to organize as much as we possibly can. And in our local protests, people have come out in such great numbers. And it really is heartening to see people participating, having their say, so many people interacting online. And it's really the case that everything counts right now. All of the digital activism counts, the phone calls count, the postcards count, the coming out on the streets counts, and it's all having a profound effect on this administration. Uh, I think there was,
Let's come back to that point in just a second. Let me get Christopher
yeah,
introduced. I'll bring him on. My other guest is Christopher Cook. He's an author and award-winning investigative journalist based in San Francisco. His writing has appeared in numerous national publications, such as The Atlantic, The Economist, Mother Jones, The Nation, The Progressive. Christopher won an Aronson Award for an investigative report on welfare agencies and a Project Censored Award. He recently published an essay relevant to our discussion that caught my attention. I've been following him since he was a guest on this program many years ago, and I'm going to talk about that. We'll send a link to this if you haven't read it. His recent essay is called "It's Time for a National Mobilization Against Fascism." Christopher is an insightful observer of the political scene and the progressive movement. Christopher, welcome back to Other Voices after all these years. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Nice to be with you.
I just let me mention to people that the last time you were on was in December of 2018. I should have called you back before that. But at the time, we had just experienced what was known as the blue wave, the midterm wipeout by the Democrats who took over Congress. And you had been writing about the Green New Deal. And so I had you on to talk about the Green New Deal. It was such a time of optimism and looking ahead. And it seems like a lifetime ago. What's your take on the current situation?
Oh, God, you had to remind me better days.
I
Yeah,
think it's important we keep in mind that there were
no,
better days. That's the goal.
absolutely. No, it's a really important reminder. And this is, a very disturbing, horrendous period in our history, but our history is much bigger than this. We saw signs in Portland saying Portland will outlive him, things like that, which are encouraging. And but just the example you're giving just shows how far we've fallen right now, that we are talking about trying to defend the most basic elemental things in our democracy and our Constitution, freedom of speech and assembly and protest, um, having some level of fairness in elections, and even having elections, that's even a question now. And the militarization of cities that's happening, which is just straight out of fascism textbooks. I mean, it doesn't get much more overtly fascistic than that. So, we're not only are we fighting all those things for our lives, but we're not talking about the Green New Deal anymore. We're not talking about raising the minimum wage anymore right now. I sure hope we get back to that very soon. And I think I can talk later. I think that's actually part of the answer, part of the solution. But all these things, we're not really talking that much about economic justice. Because we're just resisting all the economic injustice right now. But I think that, and I can go into more detail about this, but I think that is actually part of the response that we need to see from the Democrats, actually, writ large, is providing that vision, and providing not only resistance, which is critical right now, but as some groups have called it, beyond resistance, and really talking about what is a compelling, engaging, vision that is going to mobilize and engage voters, and make them realize, this is something that they want and that they need and that they want to hitch their futures to.
Yeah, indeed. Let me ask our director to bring Sally back on. And Sean, I think you can probably just leave all three of us up most of the time. Sally, Christopher just mentioned elections. This is something you know quite well, having run for office so many times and served. And in our system, elections still present one of the most powerful forms of activism, really. Are you concerned about not only this year's special elections, but the midterms next year? what kind of concern about election interference crosses your mind?
Well, I think that we're going to knock it out of the park in terms of the midterm elections, the special election that we have coming up in California. I'm very concerned, and I hope everyone will take it really seriously and vote in Santa Clara County. Here we have obviously the state Prop 50, Measure A, a temporary sales tax to salvage our safety net health care and the county assessor's race. And I hope that we all turn out for that. But I think when the midterms come up, and they will come, I think that there's going to be a lot of support for Democratic candidates, including in what were previously identified as red districts and red states across the country.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can see a lot of vote switching coming up. Beyond the elections, Christopher, one of the main parts of your recent essay that caught my attention was calling for a mass mobilization in Washington, D.C. But to me, the important thing of what you put in that is what it's going to take, the organizing to get to that point, and bringing in all kinds of diverse groups. Take a minute to just talk about that, and then we'll turn to our audience here, and because they're the ones who we need to hear from tonight and give us some guidance. What do you want?
We can't have a movement of three here.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot to say. I mean, we've seen, first I do want to give some real props to the organizing that has taken place. Nobody should take it lightly that these movements have risen up and been able to mobilize millions of people. That's no small feat. And, groups like Indivisible and the 5051 and some of these other organizations have really, on that level, have at least given people a place to go, and that's critical. I, I think that, and we have the No Kings Day part two coming up on October 18th. I'm sure everybody's aware of that, but if you're not, that'll be nationwide as well. What I'm really urging, and I'm certainly not alone in this, is to take it a step further because the Trump administration is taking it so much further right now. We can't just protest. It's great. I go out there every time I can. Um, it builds community and resistance. It's all very important, but we need to go beyond that. So I've been talking about a general strike or potentially rolling, strategic rolling work stoppages. These are things that not somebody like myself can pull off, or any of us. It's about, labor unions, other national movements have to see the importance of doing this kind of thing to send a really powerful message like, people are doing in Italy and France and other places. That alone, even that is not going to stop this regime, but it's going to be a substantial step in a different direction. And the one other thing I'll add to that, I think that, this is a key thing, I think, going into the midterms coming up. There's a real challenge that we face where we need to gear up for the midterms. We absolutely must get the Democrats back into power in the House and the Senate. It's kind of life-saving at this point. But I think it would be a dreadful mistake if the movements on the ground and in the streets attach themselves to that. We're all going to work on those things together. It's not that they're totally related. Um, but if the movements just attach themselves to the Democratic Party and become basically and I've already seen it. I've seen Newsom 2028 flags at protests a little bit, and it worries me because I don't want to see, because they may or may not win in 2026 and in 2028. But if we don't also face, unfortunately, some of the reasons that gate opened up the vacuum for this hideous Trump fascism that's happening now, if we don't recognize, with all due respect, like the ways that especially the corporate Democrats have really failed to provide leadership on healthcare, for instance. The ACA has to be saved, but we're in a situation where people don't seem to recognize um, what we could have with a real economic populist agenda. So for all the ways in which the Democrats are vital right now and, so much vastly better than what we're dealing with, I think that it's also important that we really pressure the party in an economic populist direction.
Sally, your take on that?
Yeah, I think the most important thing that Christopher ended there with was people pushing the party, because I see so many people coming forward that are saying, well, the Democrats have to do something. I think the way that it really happens is with the grassroots pushing the party in particular directions, having demands, making demands. And I think we do need to get to the point where we have those large actions. But I think it's also very profound that the No King's Day 2 is happening in 2,000 places across the U.S. And when you have it in Nome, Alaska, and Flint, Michigan, and wherever, it's an undeniable movement when it's coming up organically in so many places, and especially when it comes out in the red states and people have the courage to go stand on a corner. Um,
Absolutely.
and it's really critical. So we have to do all the things right now, and I think that putting pressure on the party is a part of it.
Okay, well, let's hear what the activists out there who have been standing on those street corners have to say about this. There's two ways you can participate here, folks. And the preferred way is to click on the raise hand icon at the bottom. And when you do that, watch for a note back from our director that you are now allowed to unmute your microphone and you can ask your question. The other way is to write a question by clicking on the Q&A box. And I see there's a bunch in there already, so I'll start reviewing those. So either raise hand or Q&A. And since we don't have any hands up, I'll start with the written ones. Question for Sally. Those folks who benefit from the big ugly bill should foot the bill for California to be made whole during this administration. Those who won't shouldn't. So as a member of the Franchise Tax Board, couldn't you calculate more or less who's saving on federal taxes since 2018 and by approximately what percentage? And then modify the state tax system so they pay the amount to the FTB. With those funds, we can rehire fired workers for the state, maintain health care for all, and fight back against the Trump goons.
All good ideas. And I did finish my 1 year on the FTB, but one of the things that we were able to do there was to say that we wanted to have a hearing on work assets and the safety net. And the structure of the FTB, they said, well, we can't do that. We've never had a member of the Franchise Tax Board have a hearing. And so the first hearing in FTB history was on work assets and the safety net. And we have to keep pushing those issues. At the BOE, we're going to have an upcoming hearing, I hope, and I expect that we will before the end of the year, on what we can do in terms of corporate property taxes. And our system has shifted to the point that homeowners are now paying 70% of all property taxes, and that has increased dramatically over the last few years. And so we have to have more corporate responsibility. And I think too, some of the things that Christopher said, it's just kind of become a given that, well, there are oligarchs and this is the way that it is. And we have to continue to push back on that and clear our minds to say that's not the way that it's supposed to be. Where 2% of the population owns such a gigantic amount of the wealth.
Absolutely. Inequality just keeps increasing. And
dramatically.
I always like to remind people that economic inequality equals political inequality, especially in our system that we currently have. And before I go to the people who now have their hands up, speaking of money in politics, there's a question about SB 42 on the governor's desk. Is that getting money out of politics, Sally?
Yeah, that's a clean money campaign bill, and I think that it is going to make its way through. It did so well in the legislature in attracting co-authors, and it's always a hard thing for the legislature to get its arms around. I know that we have tried with other clean money campaign bills, and they did get through after a number of years. But we just have to keep pushing on it, and we have to have the governor make good. And if California is such a showplace of ideas, let's have progressive ideas be front and center there too.
Okay. Donald Smith, all you need to do is unmute and ask your
Okay.
question.
Okay, so thanks. So the two about elections, the depressing news is apparently a majority of white women voted for Trump, which is mind-boggling, and about half of Hispanics did, and the majority of Hispanic men did. On the other hand, Greg Palast and others say that that vote suppression determined the election, and there's a county in New York State which registered 0 votes for Trump. But anyway, I wanted you to comment on, the young people are going for Trump too. Also, young people are going for Trump also. Are we deceiving ourselves that we can win? That's what scares me. For us, it's obvious, but there are actually a lot of people who like Trump, and I don't understand it. It's a serious problem, and I want we think, oh, we're going to win if we just vote. I'm not sure. Thank you,
Donna. Thank you. And I meant to plead with everybody. Try to keep your comments brief. Get to your point. Be civil. Donald certainly was, because we got a lot of people here. So your response to what Donald just had to say, either one of you.
I mean, I can just jump in. I thank you, Donald, for bringing that up because, we always need that reality check. Trump wouldn't be here if it weren't for half the country, roughly well, that is half of the people who voted, not half the country. Let's remember that. But, I have been heartened somewhat by in the past month or two, there have been a flurry of Democratic wins on state and federal levels with House and state representative. So that is promising. I think it's a serious concern. And Sally, you may have much more insight and knowledge on this than I, but because, in some states, the Democrats are just so outnumbered in terms of Secretary of State and, actually even just controlling the state mechanisms of voting and the decisions about how it's done and all of that. But it seems like we, at minimum, would need an unprecedented level of voter protection. But I imagine you have more on that you could share if you want.
Yeah, I think that it's important to note that it was somewhere around a little bit less than 30% of the US population that actually voted for Trump. And and the folks who did wanted to send a big, loud message, primarily to Democrats, but to I think everybody who has money, and say, hey, we're out here too. I think of it as the election where the id came out and ran around. It's now got arms and legs and it's voting and doing everything else. And so we need to listen to those voices. Bernie Sanders has been doing a great job of holding town halls in these districts that are represented by members who care more about going to Mar-a-Lago than they do about the health care of their constituents. And so I think we need to keep that in perspective, and the corporations certainly have, because it was a very short amount of time that Jimmy Kimmel was off the air, and Disney said, hey, every time we lose a family, we're losing about $12,000 to $15,000 in Disney spending. And so 20%, 30% and falling of approval of Trump, they turned around really fast. And so I think there could be some surprises. Are we stuck with a lot of Republican secretaries of state? Yes. We have to hope and pray that they do the right thing.
Yeah.
Speaking of the Jimmy Kimmel, there's one question here about doing more boycotts from an anonymous user. And boycotts, I want to take a moment to respond to that myself. Boycotts can be powerful. We saw that in the anti-apartheid movement with South Africa, with the grapes, but the United Farm Workers. But they're difficult to organize, difficult to have an impact. But I think we need to be prepared to see more situations like the Jimmy Kimmel. Mm-hmm. There will be occasions where that would be the appropriate response. And rather than go looking for a boycott right now, just be aware and be able to move on that. I read that something close to 2 million people canceled their Disney Plus subscriptions. That was a big incentive to protect the freedom of speech on the part of Disney. So,
yeah.
Okay,
no, I mean,
go ahead, Christopher.
No, I think that, there will be boycotts like that just catch fire like that. I think that it's what's tricky. We can name, a dozen major corporations that are, much more embedded with the Trump administration than maybe the others. But, there's always this tricky thing, which companies do you focus on and where do you draw the line? I mean, I would like to see more of a focus on a general strike or these rolling work stoppages myself, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, let's go to Chuck Powell.
Hi. So I want to make the point and hope I don't sound manic or crazy, but I'm very concerned about the actions of the Trump administration, and I fear that waiting for 2026 elections is going to be too late. And I therefore think we need to take more drastic actions. And I thought Christopher was on the right track for a couple of minutes there when he was talking about protests and boycotts, and then you veered off into let's get the Democrats to do something. The Democratic Party, I have no faith in. Some of the members are so weak. Some of them just seem to be out there to collect funds. And I think we need to move to get people to do things. I know you said it was hard to organize, a march in Washington. But if we can't organize a massive event in Washington, we can be promoting events locally. And I think we need to be doing severe stuff. And I don't think we should be talking about the Democrats. I think, and I'm not even sure that we should be talking about some of the Democratic agenda. I think we should be directly attacking the actions that Trump is taking, the military in the streets, the violation of laws, the unconstitutional acts, the way the Supreme Court has been supporting him. I think we need to directly focus on those, and every time that happens, we get people out there to say, you can't do this. We need to attack the money of his supporters, because I think my sense is he doesn't care about what people think. He cares about who's bribing him to get things done. So whether it's, well, I won't get into all of it. I've kind of I'm at the point where we need to do much more serious stuff. And I wish you all would be talking about getting more serious stuff done, not doing things that may or may not have an impact 2 years from now, when a party gets in power and some of the folks just spend all their time debating, how to go forward. Sorry.
Thank you, Chuck. Challenging questions are welcome. You want to respond to that?
Well, I very much I agree with Chuck in the sense that we do need to take serious and effective action, but I don't think we have the luxury of saying, well, this protest here isn't going to really change the world, so maybe not going to put the emphasis on that. I think we have to do all the things. And it may be that it's different people who will come out for a local protest versus those who will get themselves to Washington, D.C., or who are working in a crucial industry and can be effective in a general strike. As an organizer, I always face a lot of questions about where are the young people? How do we get the young people? We can't go forward without the young people. Well, we have to go forward with the people that we have every single day. And so for me as an organizer, I love my silver tigers. A body protesting is a body protesting. And let's do as much as we can with every single day. Um, Having had the experience of being in the legislature, I'm probably the most jaded person around about the Democratic Party, but I am a part of the Democratic Party because we just don't have the luxury of not using all of the machine that we possibly can. And that includes things like arts and organizing and everything is a part of the expression of resistance. And that's what we really, really need right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I just want to thank the person who raised the question. Is it Dan, I think? But anyway,
Chuck.
Chuck, sorry about that. Um, yeah, no, I think it's critical that we step up our resistance and figure out other ways to do it that are, I think the time is really coming for civil disobedience, for nonviolent civil disobedience. And, there are many different forms that can take. I think that we could do more pickets outside of different federal agencies that are doing, frankly, insane things, whether it's your local HHS office around the vaccines and other stuff that RFK Jr. is doing, or obviously the ICE, which, people are pretty vigilant about that, which is great. Um, I don't think there's going to be any one thing that's going to do it. As Sally says, I think it's clearly, there is no magic bullet, but, we have to raise the stakes because they're raising the stakes, but do it in a way that is obviously careful and thoughtful and nonviolent. And I think also recognizing that since hopefully there are some days or weeks where we might be able to stop or slow down certain things, whether it's through the courts, which is actually one of the more successful avenues we've had or in the streets where people locally in San Francisco have prevented some of the ICE hearings from happening sometimes, and that's a great accomplishment. There was an article about this person in Los Angeles, Angie the Ice Chaser, who goes around, basically giving them some of their own medicine and videoing them and tracking them down. So there's a lot of great activism going on like that. But I think that it really has to, we have to find a way to get more people involved locally, and find ways for people, we don't have to wait for the next No Kings protest or even for an organization. I saw a powerful protest online the other day of just maybe, I don't know if it was even 100 people, all dressed in black with these powerful signs. This is fascism. This is fascism. This is fascism. Knowing that no one thing is going to stop this madness, unless it's like an emergency situation with ICE or something. But in general, it's how can we also penetrate the national psyche and the national conversation? And maybe, another strategy is like taking some of our ideas to uncomfortable places and having conversations and trying to share information because they're not getting this information. Most of the people in MAGA country are likely not hearing about the many millions of people who are going to be cut from the ACA coverage because of because of what's happening right this moment, right now, or any number of other Trump policies. So I think that's another key is we do the protests in the friendly cities because that's where we are, but taking our message and some of our people to uncomfortable areas in a thoughtful, careful, nonviolent way with information and because this is going to be a bit of a war of attrition. Sorry to use that term war, but just it is about attrition. It is about trying to change some minds over time as well.
I think one of the lessons here is that there is no single answer, even though we're groping for different answers here tonight. But all these different actions do help to grow the movement overall and add people as we go along, people who didn't think they would be standing out on the street corner with folks. I always think about, and I'm often reminded the power of reaching out like that back in our series of protests against the coming invasion of Iraq in 2002 and 2003. We purposely scheduled some demonstrations for weekday evenings at local news broadcast time in hope of garnering live coverage. And sure enough, they loved it. They were out there with the vans and had us on live. Within 10 minutes of going live on Channel 7 News or whatever it was, more people would show up at the demonstration saying, I just heard about this. I thought I was the only one feeling this way. I'm so glad to see you're out here and I have something to join. That's part of the work right now, I think, is making ourselves visible. Let's go to Cheryl Spencer has her hand up. Always a welcome questioner on here. Hi, Cheryl.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much. I'm a member of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. Our branch here in Palo Alto Peninsula has been going since 1922. Our organization is 115 years old, and we tackle many of these issues. We are a multiple issue organization. We are the people you see at the corner of El Camino Embarcadero every Friday. Every Friday, come rain or shine, from noon till 1 o'clock with our signs. And we have expert sign makers. So whatever Trump's done that week, we will have a sign for it. So please, those of you on, I invite you to come join us noon to 1 o'clock, Fridays, corner of Embarcadero and El Camino in Palo Alto, essentially outside Town and Country Village. Two other things I'd like you to know about. We've been talking about the less well-off people. The Poor People's Campaign is a very important campaign run, by Reverend Barber and some other people. He's been putting himself on the line. He goes to the Capitol in DC and gets himself arrested. And they are trying to get more people to vote because their statistics show that the poor people didn't vote in the last election. They didn't think their vote was going to make any difference. So they're trying to educate poor people, and they reckon there's 140 million people in the US who are poor based on a definition of poverty. 140 million, and we got to get more of them to vote. There's an organization called Verified Voting. They are trying to make sure that the whole voting process is fair, and we can verify that the results are correct. So if you look up verifiedvoting.org, they will show you what they are trying to do. So I think I really don't have a question. I just want to invite everybody to join WILF. You can write to us at WILF, WILPF peninsula.paloalto@gmail.com. That is our branch address. Or you can go look at our national website, wilfus.org, WILPF.US, all one word, .org.
Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you very much.
It's very legitimate to let people know about other ways they can get involved. And WILF on the Peninsula has been active the entire 35 plus years I've been at Peninsula Peace and Justice Center, and my hat's off to them. Any follow-up comments on that from either of you, or you going to join them Friday at noon?
Well, I appreciate Cheryl's comments, and I was talking with someone yesterday, and most of the impacts of the Trump administration are unduly burdening women, whether it be nowhere to give birth, a decreased number of hospital emergency rooms, the impact that we see worldwide on women. And I think it's so important that women are organizing and continue to organize and have a long-term sustained push. That's so incredibly important. So thank you, Cheryl. And I took a lot of notes here, so I'm going to take action on those.
That's great. So there's a question in the text box from Sharon, who says, I just got here. Seems like the Q&A. Did I miss the presentation? And will a recording be sent out? Well, that's because we did things a little different tonight, Sharon. I know you are a regular attendee of Other Voices, and we usually do have about a half-hour presentation. But tonight we've gone straight to the activists who are out there standing on the streets to hear from them. And that's the point of it. And Sally and Christopher are here to help me facilitate that conversation. So let's go to our next questioner. And I apologize in advance, but I haven't a guess at how to pronounce your name. But please join us and let me know how to say your name. Welcome.
Yeah, I'm GM Sastri from Hyderabad, India.
Okay.
I formed a group called Disarmament Group. I've been recognized as a committee member in the UNIDR Disarmament Group. I'm also part of Theatre Hughes Academy of Germany. I have 35 years of experience in the corporate and civil society sector. I'm based in Hyderabad, India. Please join my group, Disarmament Group, and strengthen it. I would like to act it as a library of experts and commoners, connecting them through disarmament thoughts. Their posts will be shared. People can join there and benefit from the disarmament thoughts. I will also be contributing to the disarmament thoughts now and then. Please join that group. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Marianne Ferda. Oh, Marianne seemed to have disappeared. Justin G. Can we bring Justin G on? Well, we got Bill Knoll. That's fine. Bill, unmute and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I just came on. I'm still kind of formulating in my mind what I want to say, and I'm sorry I came on late, so I may be going back over something you've already talked about. But first of all, I'll just say to Sally, we know each other, I think. I've known Sally for a long time and been very inspired about not just what she's doing now, but what she's done in the past. Your whole story about the time you went to the Greek islands, I think you told about, was amazing, and that really got me inspired when you told that story. But yeah, so you've done the 7 mile and the 17 mile on El Camino, and both times I like to believe that they've been fairly successful. I can tell you I was in Redwood City, at the very northern end of Redwood City, and we had a solid group of people from one end of our city on El Camino all the way down to the border of Atherton. There was a really strong group, by the way, Sally, from North Fair Oaks that came together at the corner of 5th and El Camino, a number of Hispanic people who came out that day. So I guess what I'm trying to formulate as a protester is how we're gonna respond if the day comes, and I really do, because I'm also part of the Rapid Response Network, and we're spending a lot of time not only responding to ICE, but also preparing for when it becomes a bigger threat in our community. And I guess I'm sorry, Christopher, I don't know you that well, so I don't know how to frame my question to you. But to Sally, I would simply say, what sort of strategy, or where do you think we are, and where do you think we can go and be, like, say, over the next 6 months?
Yeah. Well, I doff my hat to Bill Newell, who is a friend of mine, and we've worked together and been around each other for a long time. And I think the thing now is, we had the luxury for a while of having a sane government that maybe wasn't doing everything that we wanted it to, but wasn't, just straight out abusive and gleeful in doing so.
Yeah.
And right now, I think a thing that we can do is to get all the training that we can. Bill mentioned the RRN network to be observers of ICE and to be coordinating information about where ICE is, what they're doing. There are observers in the courthouses to report when someone was taken before they even got to go to their court hearing. There are legal trainings coming up. There are trainings on how to do CPR at a protest. And basically, where I'm at right now is I go to any training that's offered, because we all have to continually up our skills. And we are going to face really tough times ahead, but this will not last. And there have been episodes in American history where some of the same things have happened, be it the removal of U.S. citizenship from women who married immigrant men during World War II, to everything that happened during the Civil Rights Movement, to the courage that people had to express in all of the anti-war movements. And so we just have to cross-train, talk to each other, share the solidarity. And the most important thing that can come out of this crisis is to have more appreciation for the rights that are in our Constitution, and to have more of a commitment to solidarity across color lines, across income lines, across redlined neighborhood lines, all these kinds of things. And I think that's just the most powerful way that we can do things. I'm tremendously heartened by the people who come to the local protests who say, I've never protested before. I don't know what to expect. Do I need to write my next of kin on my arm with a Sharpie? Or what's going to happen here? And they come and they protest and they meet people and they get to have their say. And they say, I want to come back. I want to keep doing this. And that's where we have to be, because maybe the first action that somebody takes is going to be to come to a local protest. Then they submit comments online to a federal agency. Then they start being an observer. They start to have conversations with people who are unlike them. And it's a progression. Nobody starts at the top rung of the ladder. So we have to present all those rungs that people can start to increase their activism.
Yeah, I'd love to echo that. I think that's great, Sally. And the Indivisible No Kings group has a 1 Million Rising project as well, where they're training activists. I think they've had something like 2,000 training events around the country. So that's a great place, one place that people can plug in, whether it's the national or in your local Indivisible or 5051. Or another group, if you know of another group. It doesn't have to be those groups. I think that, and the question's been raised also because, not everybody's comfortable protesting or has ever done it, or, the times are getting scarier. And so I think that things like forming affinity groups, forming neighborhood or very hyper local political type affinity groups, whether they're with friends or just people who you know and agree with on this stuff, who you can support each other in either going to a protest and you all have each other's phone numbers, or you have some other way of contacting, or you report back at the end, or any number of things like that. And people can also do their own protests or their own, I was answering a question on the chat here too about, if people are not comfortable protesting, they could do a tabling, an informational tabling, around whether it's around the loss of health care or attacks on immigrants, or, any number of things that the Trump administration is doing, um, that's so harmful. And I just also think that it is inspiring and potentially hopeful that so many more people are becoming active, who may not have been activists before. And yeah, if this is how people, all of us, kind of wake up sometimes to things. We wish that we didn't have to go this route, but it seems like this is, becoming more and more of an existential situation. And so people are really waking up to these things. And I guess, what I just want to also encourage is that as we do that and as we go to the protests and the marches and other things, I continually ask, where is this going? Where are we headed with this? And on one level, if it succeeds in resisting and toppling Trump in some fashion, then that's incredible. But let's also not pretend that it was wonderful in America the day before his election. So, and that's part of, sadly, why he won, because it wasn't wonderful at all. There was so much struggle already. And, that is something that all of us, I think, have to confront, whether we are in the Democratic Party, independents, progressives, lefties, like, what is our vision, and how can we make that translatable and compelling to people, that, like, we're out there fighting for them, we're fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for, universal health care and um, universal human rights in this country and civil rights, and not just restoring things to, the day before Trump.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for the question and those wonderful answers. Let's go with Marianne Ferda, has got herself back in line. Marianne, welcome to Other Voices. What's your question?
Thank you. I just wanted to the first time I was called upon, I didn't get the thing on the screen, so I couldn't unmute. Anyway, I used to live on the peninsula. I'm now in the East Bay. And I wanted to thank you, Sally, for what you've said, and Christopher for what you've said. I'm sorry I missed the beginning because I teach yoga, so I missed the beginning of the session. I was floundering around trying to figure out where to connect. I have found a home in Indivisible. And what I want to say about that is that, yes, they have the 1 Million Rising, which is groups that specifically come together, groups of 10 or so, and they meet. And and I'm starting a group actually myself just this week. Most of them started a couple of months ago. Anyway, but not only 1 Million Rising. I know that Indivisible has chapters all over the place. I know they have a chapter on the peninsula because I know a couple of people who are involved there. And there's a place for everybody to plug in. So again, I'm echoing what I have heard. Yes, you don't have to go to a protest, but you can be a witness at a courtroom. There's people that do that. You can show up at Home Depot because we know that the police forces are so well financed now. There's going to be more and more, and there's going to be more of that stuff happening. Just last week, a 73-year-old Indian woman who's been here for 35 years, you may have heard that story, was deported back to India. Fortunately, she wasn't sent to someplace and nobody knew where she was. So it's ramping up. again, Sally, I appreciated what you said about going to every training that you can. I go to every training that I can. I feel really grateful that I worked 60-hour work weeks for years so that now I have time to be able to donate to the organizations who are doing this work. And again, there's an organization called Diablo Rising Tide, which is, I don't know if they make their way down to the peninsula, but I did a training with them just last weekend, and they are training people to be able to deal with not only a heart attack if somebody gets a heart attack, but how to deal with the tear gas and the pepper spray and that sort of thing. And so those of us who are interested, I mean, I became a peacekeeper because it's sort of one step above. You go to march, but you want to find there's a groups of people who observe to try to de-escalate situations as they're rising. There's another organization called Bad Ash, which is Bay Area, Bay Area Direct. I can't even remember, but they deal with, they send their bicyclists, on bicycles, they go to marches. So they prevent cars from, impacting the roadways. Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm motor mouthing here. I've been up since 4 o'clock this morning, but this is so exciting. It's so wonderful to hear. And Christopher, exactly what you were saying about, yes, we're not going to go back to just the Democratic Party, because exactly what you said, why we have Trump is because so many people were disaffected and so many people were left behind. I would also recommend you to God, what's his name? A conservative columnist for David Brooks. Read David Brooks writes for Substack now. And it's astounding. I listened to a YouTube that he did the other day.
Marianne,
I'm sorry. Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
okay. I appreciate your enthusiasm. It's infectious. But we do have other people.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Marianne, and I'm glad you got through.
Oh, could I?
We're coming up. Just a sec. We're coming up to 8 o'clock. Let me ask first Sally and Christopher. Can you stick around a few more?
Oh, absolutely.
And I need to ask our director, Sean. You okay with sticking around for another 10 minutes or so? I'm going to assume that's a yes. I forgot he can't talk to me coming back. So let me just quickly, I want to pop in something here that I've been thinking about. So much of our movement requires getting the word out, not only in advance of what we're doing, but reporting on what happened. And I am really concerned about our current media landscape in this country. It is changing rapidly. It has been changing rapidly. Christopher, I'll ask you first, since you're a working journalist. What do you make of our current media landscape? We're not, the mainstream media seems to be letting us down a lot. There is a growing independent media landscape out there that is finding some footing on platforms like Substack that the previous caller just mentioned. What's your take on that big issue of that megaphone that we need?
Yeah, I mean it's such a huge question. The media landscape is not what it used to be. It's all over the place, So I think there's some excellent reporting that takes place, whether it's in like the quote legacy, New York Times, Washington Post, those places. They have the resources. ProPublica does some excellent work, really documenting the human effects of some of these Trump policies, which I think is critical. So, that is out there. I think that, individuals doing whatever they can with the information that's out there is also great. Knowing that it's a dangerous landscape with AI and deep fakes and all the rest. So it's hard to always know if what you're liking or sharing is legitimate. So always have a skeptical eye around that as well. if we think of stories that the local media or national media are not covering, I think it's important for us to let them know. We can say do their job, but if we don't feel like they are, then letting them know. And sometimes they may even be responsive. If you email a journalist or if you do something on social media and let them know about this story, it could filter up. So I think those are, writing letters to the editor. It's one of the more read portions of the newspaper, if the newspapers even exist anymore. But um, so, and op-eds, of course, I mean, it's an area that I've leaned into more. I think what's really hard these days is finding the media spaces where you can reach, quote, the other side. There are very few, there are some, but it's hard to know which ones those are. I tend to think they are sort of medium-sized, mainstream, metropolitan newspapers, not the big national papers. Maybe they're local newspapers, and radio, but yeah, that's a tough space to figure out.
Yeah, it sure is. Let's go to Elaine Albizri. Okay, as soon as you unmute, we can have your question, Elaine. Hi,
Okay.
Elaine, welcome.
Yes. Yeah, I'm kind of burning up here with excitement over an idea I have in my head. But just to tell you, I worked hard on SB 42, collecting signatures on the rallies that we had. And I think it's important to say that. We got over 14,000 signatures. And the reason it was so incredible was that people just wanted something to do. I was giving them an action. Well, they're standing there waving their signs to the motorists. And it was a really exciting, incredible time. It just where do I sign? What's this all about? This SB 42, for anyone who doesn't know, is the California Fair Elections Act, which will be on the ballot with Governor Newsom's signature, we hope, getting it through on the ballot for next year. But so I've heard you guys saying a lot of things that I've experienced on demonstrations in the past. We had to go into San Francisco to demonstrate against the Iraq War. This time I walked down from my house and a few yards and there were all the people on the street. This is an amazing, exciting thing for
Elaine,
the
I
Bay
need to
Area.
correct you. Peninsula Peace and Justice Center put 5,000 people at Palo Alto City Hall.
Yeah, I was there too. I was there too. You're absolutely right. But nothing like people lining up El Camino. And the other main thing about El Camino was all those people hooting in support. That was amazing.
Elaine, you said you had
Elaine,
you said you had an exciting idea.
Yes. Well, the next point I'm going to, Italy closed down for 3 days. Everyone was stuck on the streets for the protesting the genocide. They closed the country down for 3 days, and all the vehicles were on the road. So my proposal is, listening to what Chuck was asking, what can we do next? How can we make a noise? How can we get the media's attention? And that is cavalcades of cars going into San Francisco to the federal building. They're coming in from all over the Bay Area, not just from Palo Alto, not just from here, but driving in. We're going to shut down San Francisco because of all the vehicles that are going in there with our signs. That's my exciting way that we're looking for some way to make a noise that gets attention. And we have the people because they're so excited to get on with it. So if Indivisible can pull something off like this off, it would be just amazing. And this is a time to do it. And I agree with you, tackling all the other things that the authoritarians are doing, tackling them, facing them, ICE, and all the things that we come involved in to face those. But to have a cavalcades of cars driving in to San Francisco would really upset people, upset the system.
That is an idea I hadn't heard before. So any comments on that? Shutting down San Francisco? And then we'll move on to our next question.
Well, I would say those are all great ideas coming forward from Elaine. And if you can't, if you're in a space where you can't bring a sign, wear a t-shirt with your message on it. Support the content creators that you like. Substack is a great place to be. Um, getting through those paywalls, as many as you can afford for journalism that you care about. And I see a lot of comments popcorning up in the comments about Gaza and by extension the West Bank. And I think we're not going to attract the young people without grappling with that issue in a very meaningful way. Um, I wanted to mention that Justin, wonderful Justin of Tesla Takedown, is in the comments and he doesn't have a microphone, but this is one of the people who's really doing a lot. And he has been forcing accountability for the corporations like Palantir that are so richly benefiting from selling our privacy and selling our personal safety away to this awful administration. Um, so there's a million ways that you can do this. Someone mentioned, some of the silver tigers don't feel comfortable showing up at rallies. I think the actions on El Camino are a way where it's diffuse, where it's more comfortable for people. But you can also be a keyboard warrior and and make a comment on content that you support or content that's raising ideas for you or delving into issues, because we're kind of stuck with the platforms that we have until there are more. And the algorithms are so powerful in what we and others are able to see. So if you see someone who's delving into the kinds of actions or commentary that you think is worthwhile, give them a like, make a comment, and that means that more people will see that. And that too is activism that means something right now.
That's a really good point. And let me put in a plug here for Blue Sky, if I can. It's much like Twitter, but it is a nonprofit, and there is no algorithm. It's what you make of it. So try checking out Blue Sky. Peace Center and myself are on there and enjoying it a lot.
Paul, can I jump in for a second?
Sure, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to also thank the people mentioning Gaza, in the chat, and we really should have been highlighting that more. And just to say that that was that's an issue that seems to span both parties, sadly. And the Democrats don't offer really any solution around that, sadly. But Trump is being at least as awful, if not worse, really, with all of this. And I think that there have been some efforts to really bring those movements together. They're not exactly the same movements. People are not going to agree on every single issue, but I think that, Israel's, genocidal war crimes and assaults on Gaza are just piling up every day, and absolutely, the actions have to take place. And the one other thing I was going to add is that I think that while being nonviolent but also dignified in our protests, we can be very dramatic, and we can show, there were protests during the Vietnam War that were incredibly dramatic, sort of fake pouring of blood and things like that. I'm not saying that we need to do what they did. We have our own versions of that now, but really showing and dramatizing for people the pain and that is being inflicted by the Trump administration on immigrants, on the people of Gaza, and on people who need health care. Everybody needs health care, and so many, and just our democracy and our government. And so, like, really dramatizing those things, in front of federal buildings, like the caller was saying, whether it's with a car cavalcade or just a mass march and forming a human ring around a federal building and in a really dramatic fashion. There are a lot of different ideas out there, and great artist activists who can help with this kind of thing also.
Great, good ideas. Let me ask our director to jump to Gerald Grass next on the list, since Bill has already had a chance. So Jerry, welcome. Unmute and ask your question. Unmute, Jerry. Unmute, Jerry, or you're going to lose your opportunity. Jerry, okay. Let's jump to Ventura Longoria, if we can. Okay, unmute Ventura. Okay, your
Good
question.
evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you for sharing what all of you are doing tonight. My name is Ventura Longoria. I'm a rolling reporter for KBBF, one of the oldest bilingual radio station here in Sonoma County, Santa Rosa. I just wanted to let you all know that hopefully, if it's okay with all of you, that I'm going to be also playing what you did tonight on KBBF this Saturday. I hope that's okay with you. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Ventura, would you contact me about that? I'd like to stay in touch with you. You can email me, and anybody is welcome to use this email address, paul@peaceandjustice.org. PAUL at peaceandjustice, all written out, .org. And that sounds very exciting.
Thank you
So,
very much for all of you.
Thank you. And
right.
We have people returning with other questions. So I think what I'll do is cut it off at this point and ask Christopher and Sally for just a couple of closing thoughts to leave with our people tuned in tonight. Christopher, why don't you take the first shot at this?
Right. First of all, thank you everybody for coming to our event, being with us. Really appreciating this community conversation. And, I think that amid, we're all the criticism, to just take heart in the fact that so many millions of Americans are feeling the way we're feeling, and we're experiencing this existential crisis, and we are really trying to come together, and it's imperfect, and it's messy, and we just have to keep trying and find the ways that are comfortable for you when you're able to maybe step a little outside of our comfort zones. That's up to each individual, but and get some affinity groups or support in doing that. And I think always we can just keep asking ourselves, what more or different can I do today or this week to contribute to this mass rising movement? And then just continue asking that larger question: where is this going? And what is this leading toward? And can we find ways to build this more into a movement that does start to provide a vision for people? Because we see the signs out there at these protests, and it's not only anti-Trump. There's signs of love and peace and justice, and not in just feel good ways, but in really concrete ways, that people are out there for that. They're out there for community. They're out there for their neighborhoods, their parks, their libraries, all these things that we hold dear that are being endangered. And, having that sort of populate this emerging vision and emerging movement, and hopefully building toward, again, a mass mobilization in Washington, ideally getting something like 1 million people, and taking that seriously as something that we can pull this off. We can pull off strategic work stoppages, if not a general strike, or it could lead to that. We have to convince local and national labor groups to help support this. And then the last thing I'll just say is, I'd really like to see our protests do something with all the people who are there. Like, we're all there. We have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people. We march, we hold signs, and then we disperse. But how about having some actions during the protest and giving people some materials they can use during the week when they go home, or give to a friend if not. So let's just keep fighting, though.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. Sally,
Well,
closing
thank
thoughts?
you so much to you, Paul, for always leading us forward. You know, you've done so much. It's really incredible. And I want to thank Ida Rose Sylvester and Lenny Siegel, who are my partners in Good Trouble in terms of the protests. And I just want to encourage everybody by saying we have made tremendous headway in this horrible situation. And this horrible administration is becoming extremely dispirited. There's a reason that they're paying people a $50,000 bonus to join ICE and paying them top wages, and it's because people do not want to do it. I would just say be sure to vote in the special election. Please, please vote yes on 50. And if you're in Santa Clara County, vote yes on A. And let's all do something subversive every single day to resist. There's a little thing that you can do if you just open up your computer. It's going to be right there for you. And let's just support each other in our activism and try to do something every day. We can all do one thing. Let's see if we can all do 5 things that are going to drive this administration nuts and detract their attention from what they want to do. Let's keep pushing the truth every single day in the contacts that we have, and we're really making a lot of headway. So you guys are doing an absolutely great job. Let's keep going.
I'm going to make that our new slogan. Let's drive them nuts.
Oh, let's do it.
I like that. Okay. Well, thank you, Christopher Cook, Sally Lieber, all of you who have tuned in tonight, and your very heartfelt comments and questions that you brought. Just a quick note, we do send out a follow-up email with links, and especially a link to the video of tonight's program. One of the things you can do is share that link when you get it and make sure other people see this and get involved in the conversation. Thanks also to Sean George, who has been working hard behind the scenes to keep this all running. And we will see you again next month. I'm not sure what the topic is going to be because I have no idea what things are going to be like in a month from now. So thank you again. Take care. Good night.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much.
Thank you.